And there we go. So, hi, I'm Jane Reel,
And I'm Sue Page.
and we are working on the Confronting Culture project for College for America.
No, Race for the United States.
Right, Race for the United States. Sorry, my confusion. Um, I chose the first myth was that Social Security was created as a safety net for the working class, an assurance that there will be a form of income once a person retires. So my debunk was that in 1935, Social Security was created for this reason, but it excluded a specific class of people, which was agricultural workers and domestic workers like maids and butlers, because those people were primarily African American, Mexican, and Asian. So essentially, when the Social Security Act was created, it really only covered white people by the majority by excluding those class of people within that act. So, um, only white people were collecting basically at the end of their retirement age.
Yeah, that's sad because everybody works so hard, and you would think that there wouldn't be such a segregation for things like Social
Especially,
Security and
right? You want your golden years to be golden, and if this option is there, it should have been there for everybody. So,
right. And I mean, even now, the way everything's going, Social Security is not enough for anybody anymore. So if you think I think of my in-laws who are living on Social Security and they're still working in their 80s. I can't imagine those people who weren't allowed to have it or didn't have it as well as the rest of us,
right,
um,
right.
how they're going to make it later on. That's kind of sad and very scary.
Yeah, it really is. So, it hit home to me too for the same reason, like watching my in-laws and older people in my life and thinking, wow, if they were excluded from that at that point in time, there's no way they would have been able to survive.
Right, right. And I mean, Social Security now is nothing like it was back then either. So, I mean, back then you could retire and just have Social Security, and now it's just so
$50.
scary. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
72 by the time I get to retire. So I'm just, yeah,
I'm
it's,
not even banking on it. So,
yeah, me neither, actually. So, yeah, so it's very sad. And it's, I guess during this process, reading all of this stuff, I never realized how separate everything was. I thought that at this day and age we were much more together as a country than what I was reading. It was kind of sad, just really
yeah, it's
disheartening.
eye-opening. It is.
Yes.
It is.
Hmm.
It is.
So it's just all sad. Um, I did my myth on the myth of minorities moving into a neighborhood and minorities being described as non-whites, and how the property values would drop and the neighborhoods would deteriorate. Um, there was some truth to that myth. The only difference being is it wasn't the minority or non-white families moving in; it was the white families moving out
Right.
that caused the deterioration of a neighborhood because the white families took all their resources, their tax monies, and went elsewhere. Um, so schools, deteriorated because of the lower taxes coming in and services like the police and fire. And I thought that was a kind of interesting spin because growing up, you always heard, oh, colored people move into the neighborhood and there it goes. And
Right.
to realize that it's from people moving out. And I think the biggest thing that bothers me with this is being called white or non-white. That I don't
Yeah.
I don't like that. I guess I'm colorblind, but
No, I
um,
don't. I don't. Yeah, it's hard. My husband is Hispanic, so I don't. My kids are just my kids. They're not. Oh, that's my half Spanish daughter. They're just
right.
my kids. But growing up, I lived in an area where the Cuban refugees in the '80s, the influx when Castro let them go, came to my neighborhood. It was a high Cuban rate neighborhood, and I first hand saw that when these refugees came in and people didn't want to live in the neighborhood anymore, they left. So the neighborhood
Yeah.
quickly deteriorated. Stores closed. The grocery stores weren't there anymore. The laundromats, and it wasn't a good place to be at night. So I first handedly experienced it, and it doesn't make any sense because if the community would have just embraced these people and helped them, got them jobs, and did what they could do to help, none of that would have
Right. It's just it's sad. I mean, I remember I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. Um, we did not see anybody of other ethnic origins or of color, and I mean, we just didn't. And we talked before about the segregation in schools and how they wanted to mix everybody, and how parents went crazy because they wanted to bus kids 2 hours across Boston. And um, at 5 years old, my parents didn't want me to go like to Dorchester, and the Dorchester moms didn't want their kids to come all the way out at 5 years old, like
happened.
2 hours on a bus. And you can kind of see both sides. But I remember my one thing my parents really protested was not so much the integration of the schools, but the busing of the kids all over the place. But like my neighborhood back then, I mean, today I wouldn't be able to afford to live there. Based, if it was still the same, I wouldn't. I don't think even as a non-minority I'd be able to afford to live there. It was
Right, right.
so
Yeah,
that was sad.
yeah. The whole race thing is odd. It's a matter of opinion, and I guess sometimes it's just the time and the place where you are. How people in that particular area feel about it. So it's coming from a multicultural family, it's sometimes difficult for me to witness that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I've never witnessed that firsthand because I'm not from. I feel like sometimes I've lost out because I'm not from a multicultural family, and so I think it's really interesting. And I thought at this day and age that this stuff wouldn't even be thought of. The whites and the non-whites, and I just thought we were so much more advanced than that. So it's just kind of, I don't know, just it made me sad again for the same word reading all of this stuff, because you're thinking all of these great programs and it's helping everybody, and then you realize, well, it's not.
it's not
Then
right.
it's keeping the divide there, and that needs to stop. That divide needs to go away.
Yeah, agree, agree. So I think Sue and I we've debunked our myths and both agree that this was a sensitive topic for all. But I really enjoyed it. It opened my eyes, even though you think that you're open minded and you get things, but reading on some of the stuff, the website that we use to use the information, I personally didn't agree with all of it. Like, I don't believe that race was something that people decided upon in the more current years that, white America created race. I personally don't believe that. I've read things in history books where, the darker skinned people were used for physical labor, where the lighter skinned people would work in the households and do paperwork and things like that. So I personally didn't agree with a lot of the things on that website that we had to use for reference, but some of the stuff was interesting.
Yeah,
To read on.
I found it interesting too. I found it the thing with the housing. Growing up, like I said, the way I did, my father was extremely prejudiced, and he would be the one that would say, "Oh, there goes the neighborhood. People of color have moved in." But to see that it was actually the white Americans moving out
Right.
is what caused the issue. And you know, you look on the news now, and all of the Blue Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter and what and everybody matters, and it's just seeing how people are reacting. And now it's even more of a subject with the ban on like the Muslims coming in and the refugees coming in. And um, the whole thing is just it's just mind-blowing. I really thought we were far beyond this
And we
you know
should be at this point, especially when you look at some of the topics on that website. Like I said, I don't agree with all of it, but a lot of it is fact. It's history. It happened, and you look at this
right.
stuff and you think, oh, 2017, why is anybody's skin color or religion choice even a factor anymore? It shouldn't. To me, it's, are you a good person or are you not a good person? Right. That's
Right.
how you should factor things, not based on what's on the outside.
Right. And I think within my circle of friends and people that I talk to, that's how we see things. And maybe it's just kind of having a closed off view. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't see things the way some of the facts in the reading material were either. Um, like you said, if you're a good person, I don't care.
right,
So I mean, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. So I think there is a change, but I think it's more in circles versus countrywide. Like there's many
right,
circles, and I think if all the circles joined together, then there would be a whole different
right.
look on this. And this is history, is the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is the history of what
Exactly.
we've dealt with.
Yep, and what we're dealing with now with, the Muslim ban, and even though it's not a Muslim ban, but feels that way. We have
Yeah,
a good friend of ours who's Muslim, and she takes it personal. She
yeah,
she's
I
not from one
agree.
of those countries, but she takes it personal, and I do too. Not only for her, but as a human, you know.
Right.
So, but like I said, I didn't agree with a lot of the things on that website, but there was a lot of information out there, things I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
and just eye-opening experiences, on there with taking two people born at the same time, given um, the same era, and then how one grew up because he was white, and how the other grew up because he was black. Like that was interesting, and that again, I've also seen that firsthand. So
Right.
there is a lot of good information on that website. It was interesting.
Yeah, and I think I mean, talking with you, I think we're pretty close in age, and it sounds like we even grew up very different. Um, so I remember being a younger child, being afraid of somebody who wasn't from my neighborhood. Didn't matter skin color, but just out of my neighborhood because we were kind of sheltered.
Right,
One of the things they said is that people don't realize how bad it is until non-whites actually experience it, or something to that effect. And
right,
it's
right,
like,
right,
oh, okay, I can see that, but I don't think anybody has it easy. I don't care who you are. I mean, everything's a struggle, and I just could imagine if I'm struggling this hard, just my husband and I, and just trying to maintain our lives. Somebody who maybe is viewed differently in the same exact situation is struggling that much harder, and
right.
it's not right.
And it
It's
doesn't
just
make sense. It shouldn't be if they're willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears as I am, or you should be afforded the same opportunities. White, black, Chinese, Indian shouldn't matter.
right.
Again,
I
what
agree.
on the outside doesn't matter.
Right. Absolutely. So, but this, like you said, this was interesting. Um, and this one was kind of a personal one. It kind of hit you really, well, it hit me hard being what I would call as the white American and the one that gets everything and has it better. Um, it kind of bothered me thinking all this time growing up that everything was fair for everybody. And I mean,
Right.
that there's not 100% fairness everywhere, but growing up believing one thing and then looking at this, it's like kind of like your bubble gets burst, or
Yeah,
you're going to open your birthday present and someone says, "Oh, it's a car." It's like, "Oh, really?" Because you don't get to open it. And
yeah. Right, right.
so, I
Uh,
mean,
it's true. It's I've been on the far end of the spectrum where my whole life has been exposed to different cultures and races, and you're right. You still think that everybody's afforded the same opportunity, and then when you see, well, you want to hope that, and then when you see that it's not the case, um, it is quite wrenching and sad. But I think as a culture, we have a long way to go. But as long as there's people in the world like us that are willing to keep that open mind and fight for the rights for everybody, hopefully we'll be on the right path.
yep, I agree. I agree.
Well, thank you, Sue. I had a great time doing this project. It was great to meet you.
Same here.
And okay, so thank you, College for America, and hope we get a master on this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.